Welcome to the Life Activated Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Roberts, and this podcast is intended to empower you to live your passions right here, right now, encouraging you to be uniquely, magically you, trusting yourself, your intuition, that inner GPS that exists within all of us. And the intention is that it is a catalyst to get you out of the sidelines of your own life, because let's face it, I know you're here to do big things, and being on the sidelines means nothing is happening, and we can't have that. So I hope that every episode inspires you to step fully into your passions, what you are here to do every single day. Hello, everyone. I don't even know what date it is. Let's be real. Welcome to the Life Activated Podcast. This episode is going to be so wonderful. Get ready. Get ready to feel motivated, empowered, and to feel ready to connect with your creativity. And this is a big buildup for a really, I think, special person. Tina, before I actually get into introductions and having her introduce herself officially, is the sister of one of our previous podcast guests. So as she introduces herself, as we get into it, we'll talk a little bit more, but I think this is the coolest thing too, to be able to hear from siblings and to hear how they are each differently following their passions. So with that big old introduction and my high enthusiasm, I'll kick it over to you, Tina, to introduce yourself, who you are, what you're currently doing in your career, and then just don't forget to share a little bit of your identifiers that are for some of us in this world, the woo metaphysical elements of yourself too.
The ones you'll probably have to explain to me.
Yes, but see, this is what's great, because I know that you talked to your sister and you got a little extra information.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here. So I'm looking forward to our chat for sure. As Mari mentioned, my name is Tina Caron, and I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, working right now as a luxury portrait artist. What I really love to do is serve my clients with, all of my creativity, but I specialize in large-scale, personalized portrait art for people to hang in their homes and their offices, whether that means a photographic portrait, or if we do a painted portrait or something even more creative. That's what I really love to do. That's my passion. Been doing that full time for about a year and a half after I transitioned out of a full-time job. So I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we will.
Yes, for sure. So my woo things, let's see if I can get it right. So I'm a manifesting generator.
Ooh, your sister's the manifesting generator too.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
She finds all of my star chart stuff very interesting. She clearly sees what she sees and recognizes it in me, which I think is fascinating. So I'm a 4/6 or 4 out of 6. I'm not sure how to say that.
You're a 4/6. You're 4/6 manifesting generator. Okay, awesome.
Yep. And my authority is a solar plexus emotional.
Ooh, so you are emotional. So you are like me. I am a generator. I'm a 6/2. So we are a little bit different there. So high level, I'm sure your sister told you some of this, but manifesting generator, you have a lot of different interests. They can change. You can master something and then move on. I'm not fully clear on the 4 piece yet. So that part, but the 6, I understand, because I also have 6 in my piece. So that's, you sort of experience life in 3 different stages. And then you have your roof stage and then your off the roof stage. So 50 plus, we're off the roof. I'm off the roof. And then for the solar plexus is what you have?
Yes.
Oh, no, but you're emotional. So emotional is that, I just learned this too, because I'm also studying a little bit more about human design to help myself, but also my clients. There are different types of emotional waves that we experience. So for you, making a decision a lot of times is not just going directly with your gut instinct. It is waiting till you go through all of the wave of emotion to then decide from this clear space. And when you do, you may still not be feeling 100% confident. It still may be like 80% confident or 86%. You might still have a little questioning, but you still move forward. And there's different, again, types of waves. There's like a high expectation peak and then like a low wave. There's a sort of gentle wave there's a sense of moodiness that can come to that at times. There's other people who are just really consistent and they really don't feel the wave. So it's really cool. So after the podcast, we can talk more about it. I'll tell you a little bit more, but it's really great to know even that, so that if someone asks you to do something and you're like at the high of the wave and you want to say like, yes, hell yeah, that you can say, I'm super interested, but I just need to sit with it for a little while, or I'll come back to you tomorrow and let you know for sure what I'm going to do. So you can give yourself the time to really go through the piece. Yep. Okay. I know that you know some more things. So come on, tell us.
Oh, let's see. Okay. My sun sign is Libra. Ooh. Moon is Taurus, and rising is Taurus.
This is why we like each other. You know, I'm a Taurus.
Okay. You're a Taurus.
I'm a Taurus. So we connect highly. I love it. And then didn't you just tell me about your Enneagram?
I did. I'm a 6. So there's a lot of loyalty involved there. And so I find those sorts of questionnaires, tests, all of those personality types of identifiers really fascinating. More often than not, they feel extremely correct when they come back for me. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but they do seem to generally align all in the same way. You know, I'm either an architect or I'm a loyalist, or, you know, it's always in the same realm.
I think what's so cool about that is it helps you understand yourself and see yourself, but it also helps you share with others more about who you are and for them to understand who you are as well. Because sometimes, you know, in corporate, for example, we used to use Enneagram. We now use DISC. Don't go on that road. Your sister likes DISC. I don't really care for DISC, but that's a whole nother thing. And I'm DISC certified to like facilitate. So funny. But it's such a great thing when you understand someone a little bit more. So when you're in a work situation, for example, when you see how a person is behaving or how a person responds, you know how to either give them space, or they know how to give you space, or how to address that person or approach that person. And the same goes for regular personal life. But I have found some of this is really helpful in, you know, sort of our corporate world or working with our clients. You know, if you were to get that from a client, it might change how you approach getting them to dive into their sitting for their portrait, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
What do they really want? What do they need? What's important to them? Those are all things that in the luxury market, especially, I want to tap into and make sure that as a customized process takes place, that it's really reflecting what they want. And, you know, the artist's creativity is important. You need to bring some things to the table. But what I'm really trying to get through with my work is, what is that person's story? What are they trying to say? You know, more and more, as I moved into client work and away from working for personal reasons, I found, you know, that was harder and harder to tap into, but really exciting. You know, when somebody can tell me a story and I can say, this is what I see as you tell me that, and I start to repeat it back and tell them what I'm envisioning for a piece of art based on the words they give me, it feels really great when it resonates. It's a little harder when it doesn't. And they're like, well, you know, not quite, but let's keep trying.
Yeah, I love that though. And you know, what's so interesting when you're saying this, and we'll dive into questions too, is how I hear that also is those people who it may not resonate with. I also wonder if they are seeing themselves.
That's intriguing.
Because sometimes when you don't see yourself, it's hard to connect to the reflection.
Yes, that's true. You know, and as I was working through my career as a competing artist, and I still do that, but that was where I really kind of started this journey, was through competition. There were some people who were just pouring themselves out into their work. And I found that for me, my work mostly came from other people telling me things. And that's what would spark my creativity. It was less about my internal stories and more about what other people were telling me.
I love this. I love this. Okay. Before we really get into the questions, because we're already on it, we're already going. I love this.
Leave it to me.
I don't want to forget to share the card message with you because I will
Okay.
totally forget. I tend to do this sometimes and I don't want to do that. And so also, side note, if you didn't catch it, Tina is sisters with our first season guest, Deb Caron. And it's just so awesome that I get this opportunity to talk to you too. I'm so excited. Okay, so let's connect with the card. This message is for you. It's for me. It's for the listeners. It is whenever you're listening to this, it is exactly the timing of when you're supposed to hear this message. And the card is pulled from the Guided by Spirit deck by Asia DeShore. And this is super funny. I just want to share this with you. This card, I was shuffling the deck and this card popped out and I was like, nope, it's not time yet. I was like shuffling it again and just kind of get things ordered and it fell out again. And then finally I was like, no, let me properly shuffle. And then this card came up. So this is definitely the card for you.
It's the card for today, for sure.
Yes. And the card is Spark.
Ooh, look at that.
I know. It's
very
really
cool.
Cute. I don't know why I just said cute. It's not cute. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's a cool.
It's definitely not cute.
No.
Okay, so let me just tap into the message and see what's coming up around Spark. Okay, so this is really interesting because I don't know that I necessarily agree with this, but it may make sense for you. And it's going to come off at first as a question, but it's not for you to necessarily answer. It's just how it's coming. And the question is, have you lost your spark? Have you... No, so it's more like, so I'm going to share how I hear it. Have you lost your spark? Do you feel like your spark is lost? It's not. It's still within you. It's so funny. It's this, where are you choosing to look? How are you choosing to see it? Just allowing your gifts to flow in all ways is what creates that spark, that sense of fire, that sense of flow, creative flow. So it's almost like if you're feeling maybe you haven't connected with inspiration in the way that you wanted, it's actually with you. It's just how are you choosing to look at things? Does that make sense?
It kind of does, actually. So entrepreneurship is definitely like riding a big old wave over and over and over again, and the spark is definitely strong at first. It's exciting. You feel like you can conquer the world. You're set out on this new path and all of these new opportunities and possibilities are kind of right in front of you a year and a half in. And of course, the market and the economy are doing crazy things. And, I'm new in my journey, really, when you think about I'm a baby business in a lot of ways. And so I don't have a lot of history to really base my ebbs and flows, if you will.
Right.
Is this a normal level of business for me in this time of year? Is this abnormal? Is it because I'm not networking effectively? Is it because I'm not tapping the right people? So I'm in one of those periods of, what do I have to set fire to right now to make this happen? So it's interesting that that's what would come up today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can totally relate to that sense of ebb and flow and understanding the sort of season of the business and where things are. And also remembering that the spark is within you and it's how do we allow ourselves to also change our perspective on how we connect with it, see it, do the work that we do, because there could also be other, I just heard like avenues that you haven't even tapped into to see for yourself. And what feels interesting about this is it doesn't feel like, oh, I got to go reach new people. It's maybe how you do your work differently, or how you almost feels like different ways of offering your gifts for people to see.
That's exactly the journey I'm on right now is, with the list of contacts that I've amassed over the last year and a half has definitely grown. And I'm working through right now, what are the best messages to be sending out to that list of contacts to keep them excited, to help them be informed, to understand what is it that I deliver, because I do have to sometimes put my work in front of people physically for them to truly understand, oh, this is what you meant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Like allowing people to actually see your work and your gifts. And this one keeps coming back, is like seeing other ways that you can share your work, meaning maybe there's a different type of portrait. Maybe it's a smaller thing. Maybe it's like, what's the thing? For some reason, I keep getting this image. You can be like, Mari, shut it up. I'm not even hearing you. But like those old, I don't even know why this is coming to me, Victorian portraits. Like maybe there's something with the size, again, still the same thing, but the size, again, you could take this as crop of crap, but that's what's coming. I keep seeing like these small images of portraits.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I'm literally going exactly the other direction.
That's so funny.
I want to make them as big as I can make them. I love them to be large. I mean, you can see behind me, they're rather large. And, I like that scale so that when that's on the wall, somebody's looking at it and going, wow, I don't have to put my nose next to it to appreciate who is there. I can see it.
And they're beautiful too, right? I love them. I love them very much. And it's truly like, you look at them, and sometimes I've seen some of your work and I'm like, is that a painting or is that a portrait? Which is so cool too.
Right. Exactly.
It's when you get a chance, and I'll link Tina's website, of course, and we'll give you her Instagram, you'll be able to see these amazing, beautiful pieces of art, and you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
Okay. Let's dive into questions.
Sure.
What I'd love to know from you, and I know the listeners would love to know, and you spoke about this before. We mentioned it, I should say. This is a two-folder. Before I get to that question, I actually want to ask another question. I just realized. How did your journey to art start, to this work, and not to quitting your job piece, but actually just the journey to unfold all your gifts?
That one goes back a long time, actually. So the portrait that hangs behind me is a portrait of my father. And when I was 14, I asked for a camera for Christmas. That was all I wanted. And I asked for something fairly basic, and he, wanted me to have something a little nicer. So that's where the photographic journey started. Bought me a camera. I must have practically made him bankrupt in film and film developing, because it was all 35 millimeter film.
Yeah.
But the cool thing was that my sister and I grew up as children in the house that my dad also grew up in, which was built by his father.
Wow.
And what, was kind of a crazy older house. And there was this big scary hallway to go down to get towards the basement, right? And we would always go run as fast as we could down that hallway because that was creepy. We didn't want to go back there. And the basement was also really creepy, but I was willing to brave the basement because there was a dark room in there.
Already?
And I remember, there was a dark room built in there. I think it was my dad's that had built it. But so the funny thing is I have two uncles plus my dad who are also photographers. So I don't know who actually started the darkroom in the basement. It could have been one of three. Who knows?
That's amazing.
Right. But it was there. And I begged my dad to teach me how to develop my own black and white film. So I would sit in the closet with my film spools. And, you kind of had to do this kind of thing to get the film to go around the spool. And you had to do it in the complete dark. And I would kind of seal myself in my closet and do that in the dark. And once they were in the canisters, you could kind of roam around with them and take them down to the dark room and do what you needed to do. So I learned how to develop my own black and white film and to make my own prints there in my childhood home. And then it kind of falls apart. You get to be an adult. And then while I was becoming an adult and having to live an adult life and pay adult bills and all of that.
Those suck.
They suck. Yeah. And then digital comes along and kind of turns everything on its head.
Yeah.
And that went through its progression where, it was novel and it was interesting, but it wasn't very good. But it got better and it got better and it got better. And I've had cameras along the way. Some of them are still sitting in my office today because they're a little nostalgic, but I've had cameras that went from film to then maybe taking photos on a floppy disk, if anybody even knows what that is.
Oh my God.
Right. So it would store photos on a floppy disk. And then we progressed from there to these little small optical like DVDs, small little ones. And then, of course, it started to migrate to the different types of memory cards and all of that. So now we know we can carry cameras around in our pockets and, everybody has one.
Yeah.
So what do you do? How do you be different? How do you actually deliver something to people that they can't just create themselves? And so more meandering journeys. I moved to Texas with my job and learned how to scuba dive. And that's when I kind of rekindled my love for photography.
Gotcha.
Really, I saw things that my friends would say, "What did you see? And how do you describe it?" It's a different world, right? So I learned how to dive as a strong diver and then decided I was going to learn how to take a camera there with me. And so that's kind of what got me back into my passion for photography. But fish do not pay for their photos.
No.
Nope.
They don't.
Not at all. They don't. And so unless you can find a way to sell them, you're not really making any money. It's really more of a hobbyist type thing. But it started me back on the path, basically. So that's how it really came back into my life. And from there, I started thinking, well, if I wanted to make any money with it, I probably needed to learn how to work with people, how to pose them, how to make them feel comfortable in front of the camera. So it's kind of a long journey. We're talking, over 10 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago when I started learning how to dive. So, even though we're talking about a journey that started when I was 14, it was truly a hobby up until probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That was when I said, I need to make some money with this. And how do I make that happen?
And so when you were still in corporate, were you also doing photography?
I was, but it was tiny. If I got a paid client a couple times a year, that kind of made me happy. But along the way of figuring out what did I love to photograph, I tried high school seniors. I tried a few different genres that seemed like they might be popular. Maybe I could get, something rolling. And what I fell in love with was maternity and newborn, ironically enough. So I started working on that, focusing on that, and then started learning about professional guilds and professional associations that can really further your education and help you find mentors. So that's what I did. When I joined the Dallas Professional Photographers Association, probably I think in 2016 or 2017, 2016, I think, I started entering their monthly competition. And I started with my wildlife and nature types of photographs, and here and there would maybe get brave enough to put a portrait in. I was scared. My portrait work wasn't as good as some of the others that I was seeing. But having that faith that that's what's going to help make me better, I think made all the difference for me.
I love that. Having the faith that even though it was scary, to still put something forward so that you could be witnessed in your craft. I think that's really important to remember, is that you have to still do it even when we're feeling scared. And how did the painting piece come into that?
Okay. So the painting piece came completely born out of my desire to compete at a completely different level.
Oh my gosh.
And
competition. Whoa.
Yeah. See, the monthly competition in Dallas was great, because it got you a chance to understand if your work was improving, what kind of feedback were you getting. So this is a panel of jurors that would look at your work every month and give you a numerical score. It was kind of a scale type of thing. There were ranges. And my work slowly started to get stronger and stronger. I took a lot of workshops. I saw lots of different styles, lots of different techniques, lots of different ways to finish your images. And I kept seeing that these painted images were doing really well. People seemed to really love them. And so I wanted to try it. And I tried one in the style of one of the mentors that I had taken a class from. And I very proudly brought it to competition and was kind of told, well, it's okay.
Yeah.
But if you really want to learn how to paint, this is the person you really need to talk to. And I was like feverishly writing the name down. Her name is Michelle Parsley. And they were like, yes, parsley, like the herb.
So cool.
So I looked her up, and she did have some classes, but they were, little modular, online, do-it-yourself kind of things. And then Dallas Professional Photographers brought her to Dallas. So I got to learn from her for a day and still really didn't get it. I was like, this is hard. It's really hard. I don't know if I want to do this. Other mentors, other classes, little baby steps forward, things were starting to kind of fall into place. And then Michelle opened a monthly subscription based online, learn how to paint in Photoshop class. And so that's what I jumped into in 2019 in September. So for the last, what does that make? 3.5 years, I guess. I've been there with her, learning how to, layer my skills and every month try to build a little bit more. So when I went full time with my business, the learning kind of slowed down quite a lot, but she really kind of kick-started me into this whole painted portraits and taking my finishing to a completely different level.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. There's a lot to say there. And one thing to really call out is we're our own worst critic. And I am literally looking at your work and I've seen your work and it's fantastic and beautiful. And, having a mentor to continue to learn from, I think is so important, but also just reflecting to you to see and witness your own skill and beauty in what you do is sometimes the hardest thing for us to do. But I would want to ensure that you see it today.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's always continuous learning that can happen. There's always something you can learn from somebody. Even when you think you know it all, you don't know it all.
Yeah.
There's always a nugget you can pick up. So I think continuous learning is really important and staying engaged with those people that are teaching you things and helping you improve. I think that's a super important part of the process especially when you're doing something creative.
Yeah. And just going to add, being again, manifesting generator, like I saw that in you when you were like, I saw this other painting style or this other style. And I was like, I need to master this. I want to compete with this. Total manifesting generator thing, like got the spark of excitement and went for it.
And then that wasn't good enough. And then I had to create things that didn't exist in real life in the first place. That was fun.
But that there is totally like great example of you being a manifesting generator is
awesome.
Diving into that. So just kind of calling that out. Okay. So let's talk. We've spoken a little bit about this. You have had a corporate job and I'd love for you to share just what prompted you to take the leap. And with that, was there any fear or was it just like, I'm doing it. I don't care. I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you that I was as brave as can be and I just went, but no, that isn't how it went. I mean, we already kind of covered that that's not how I make decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
But that didn't happen. So yeah, I was with a large investment firm for 23 years. I don't know if I'm technically allowed to say who it is.
So you can just say large investment firm. Yeah, that's good.
Good enough.
Yeah.
I was a software engineer for them. So when I was there for 23 years, 21 of them, I was a software engineer. So I wasn't a software engineer when they hired me, which is kind of an interesting story in and of itself. But it was at that late 90s, early 2000 timeframe where the dot-com boom was kind of going crazy and they really couldn't hang on to technologists. And so they looked within and they looked for people that had the aptitude to be computer programmers, software engineers, production support specialists. And I got into a program to retool myself.
See, just before you even go any further, I just want to say how amazing that is and how we hear so much now about companies saying how they want to upskill their employees, and yet we don't really see it. And it's wild that it took something back then of the dot-com boom for a company to get smart and do just that. And I wish we could get to the point where companies and managers would just take that time to do that, because that meant for you a very long career at one place. And so I just want to also just call that out, because as much as companies talk the hype about wanting to do that, having been in recruiting for as long as I was in recruiting, I have yet to see that shit happen. And I just think it says so much about that company that back then they did that, and it allowed you to stay with them for as long as you stayed with them. So,
right. And to have a career path that I probably wouldn't have had access to otherwise, because I do not have a college degree. So I was one of those people that sort of life happened and it was going to go down path A, and then there was a giant fork in the road, and it ended up going down path B. Even the fact that I worked at Fidelity was kind of like that wasn't a path that I was planning on. That kind of came to me out of, some stroke of opportunity. So there were some things that I think, presented themselves that I was able to take advantage of that really put me in this position where I had a 20 some odd year career in IT that was paying me really well. And I had really great benefits. I was well compensated in a lot of ways. But, the older I got, the less I felt that pull of ambition to be like, I want the next promotion, right? Like I wanted them, and I got the final one. I got to that director level that I really wanted, and I got the nice bonus level, and I got what I wanted. And then I kind of felt like, do I want anything else? I wasn't sure that I did. I was in my 40s, late 40s, and now starting to feel this sort of conflict that was coming every single time I immersed myself in my creative space. I had to sort of extricate myself from that and go back to my corporate, political, navigating all the stuff all the time. And it was hard. And I found that to get harder and harder as the years went on. Of course, as a scuba diver, at a very well compensated job, I traveled a ton. I went all over the world. I went to some really amazing places. And there were periods where I thought, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to live on this small island and live this super simple existence and find my way to be happy that way. It crossed my mind more than once. I don't know how many people I actually articulated that to. So that might come as a surprise to certain people that might listen. But I knew that there was just a happier way to kind of live. And it didn't necessarily involve all the things. I had everything I wanted, everything I needed, but I was still looking for something, clearly, because these thoughts were crossing my mind. So I would go every year to a photography conference in January and be kind of surrounded by lots and lots of people that were either aspiring in the industry like I was, or there as a hobbyist, but competing and getting their reward from competition, which was partly me. I was doing very well in competition. And so that was rewarding. And it was a place that I got to see it, in person relative to everybody else that was competing. And then I would go to photography school in April every year. So a couple of times a year, I would get really deeply immersed in that world and then have to pull myself back out. And eventually just came to realize that I don't have the ambition to climb the ladder anymore. I don't want any more responsibility. I don't want any more stress. I was already in a stressful position. And I could see the stress that my boss and her boss and the boss above that person had to take on, because it just got bigger and bigger. I was working in the back office where we were supporting critical wire money movements, trading, reconciliations, pricing the funds. Those systems have to work, and they have to work all the time. And so that pressure was starting to sort of feel like this isn't really how I want to continue. And so I knew probably 6 or 7 years ago that when that company and I decided, and however we decided it, we're done with each other, that I was going to be a full-time photographer.
And there's, again, so much there in that. Isn't it so funny when you have these knowings and desires, and you, like when you said, I don't think everyone knows that I was contemplating living on a small island, right? And how that was your truth for so long. And your truth for so long was to follow your heart and do your art. Right. And I think so many people are going to resonate and understand this journey and this struggle of climbing the corporate ladder, being in corporate, and also being ready to make the change to do the thing you really want to do, and to follow that. I know that you are here to not just live an average life, but to live a deeply fulfilling life. And I can imagine you living your life just the way you want it, stepping into everything that you've imagined for yourself for your family, that true sense of freedom and joy and leadership. And most importantly, the legacy that you are literally here to leave in this world. And that is why I created the Life Activated course. This is a course that takes you through a tried and tested 3-step method that is going to activate your life and step you fully into your purpose with ease. This is an 8-week journey where you are going to really connect with your true meaning so that you can ignite the purpose that is deep within your soul. I could not be more excited about supporting you in connecting to what you're here for, because honestly, this is this is why I'm here, to help you fully live life as it is intended. And my clients that have gone through the Life Activated course can attest to it. My client, Stephanie, she says that she was at a crossroads in her career. She was wanting to make big changes, but she needed support and spiritual uplift. She was amazed at the career opportunities that opened up for her. She was also amazed at how she moved from being stuck in her process for writing to moving forward in the direction of completing her book, which is huge. And that's all from this course, Life Activated. If you are wanting to be in a course that allows you to do everything on your own, self-paced, and yet still have the aspect of community, live support calls, and the opportunity to meet with me one-on-one, then this course is for you. There are group support sessions, there's energy healing, there is a breathwork session, there are visualizations, additional journal prompts and practices to support you in successfully taking the steps that you know you're here to take. I see you on the other side. I see you doing everything that you're here to do, that you've always dreamt of doing. And maybe you just needed that little hand to help hold you. Hand to help hold you. Anywho, the Life Activated course is for you if you are needing that support. There's going to be a link in the show notes for you to enroll in whichever option works best for you, because let's face it, we need options in terms of how we want to be supported. And if you have more questions, I will also add a link in the show notes for you to reach out to me and schedule a call so we can talk about which option will best support you in doing exactly what it is you are here to do. I really love about you and your journey is that you just didn't pull the trigger right away. And I think so many people want to follow their passions, and what keeps them from doing it is fearing that they have to like blow all their shit up in overnight. And it doesn't have to be like that. You can be more methodical with it, and it can look the way it needs to look for you. And it doesn't have to look like everyone on IG and TikTok saying that,
Right.
I quit my job and I made 2 million yesterday. It's like, that's not real. That's also
not real.
That's not real life. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen for people. It does happen for people, but not everyone has that ability or that privilege to leap in that same way, and to not give up, but to continue to find those ways to allow yourself to go there and to do the thing that you are here to do. You doing your career in the way you have and the journey you have had is part of how you are able to be the artist that you are today.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
All that time I spent competing pushed me to the next level and the next level and the next level, and pushed me to develop the painted portraits that are hanging behind me. And
Mm-hmm.
the line that I really love, that I'm still trying to figure out really how to market and sell, is what I call the Dreamweaver portrait. And
Ooh.
those are the ones where people tell me a little story and I create something. And so it often starts with just a small idea. And it was born out of me trying to come up with these really creative storytelling images for competition.
Right.
And I did really well with them. I had some nominated for Grand Imaging Awards, and I got a lot of recognition for the pieces that I created. And I thought, you know what? That's now a product line. I
Yeah.
can sell that.
Yeah. And what's so funny to me, I think, and I don't know if you connect to this, but that is your intuition, using your like intuition and your gift of hearing someone's story to create art for that person.
Right.
So, even if your sister told you some of the things about your details, your indicators, that still doesn't mean you fall far from the intuitive gift and knowing of how to bring your work into the world and to help someone see themselves through their stories that they're sharing with you.
Right.
So I think that's super cool.
Thank you. I mean, the biggest challenge now transforms into being a business person, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times you get artists and creatives who know how to do that part, and they don't have any idea how to actually run the business side of it. And so I have a lot of experience, and I had some great access to coaching through some of the mentors that I'd worked with. So I had a lot of opportunities to really build the foundation of my business the right way. And now it boils down to putting it out in the universe that I'm here. And I want people to find me and tell me their stories.
Yeah. They will. Trust me. It's going to be happening. It's definitely going to be happening. And I think also not only the training that you've had with different, sort of coaches and mentors, but you just have the corporate background. So, and you worked in a high stress job in corporate.
Right.
So you can handle all of this. My question to you is, you're still in this early phase. What keeps you going? Why do you keep going?
Oh, I mean, I don't really want to go back to someone else telling me what to do every day. I kind of enjoy the fact that if I want to get up at 6 or if I want to get up at 8, it's up to me. The ability to go to networking events and meet new people. I never did that when I worked at my corporate job. I didn't see the value because everything I needed was right there. So I'm experiencing my community a lot differently than I ever did before. So I think that's a really big positive. I feel like I'm off the rabbit trail of your question though.
No, it's
what keeps me going? What keeps me going?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I still, even though I might be in a period where, okay, where are my people? Where are they coming from? I've got to go figure that out. I've got to send out some emails. I've got to do some ads. I've got to go to more networking. I have to literally ask, who do you know that might be interested, which is very uncomfortable for me. But what keeps me moving is that I know that it will happen.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know, some people just call that sort of blind faith, I guess, but I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing to put it out there, and I'm just going to keep doing it, and it's going to happen. And I will look back in a couple of years and be like, why were you scared?
Yep. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And it's so true, because I really do feel like when it is our calling, when it is us doing what, our passions, our truth to, that our soul truth, it will come. And it is hard to stop. You can't stop. And it's true. You're going to look back and think, wow, look at how far behind I thought I was, but look how far I have come in this period of time. I guarantee you, your friends are watching you with envy and, wishing that they could be doing the things that they really want to be doing. And they see you already as successful. And I think, again, this is what's so, maybe it's maybe this is part of the challenge or problem with having grown up in corporate, is that we perceive that these things are supposed to happen like on a clockwork of a time frame based in a corporate world. And that's not how the journey of building your business always is. And it's also truth, not the way the world works. It's not the way our journeys are meant to unfold. And to have that faith and to continue to move forward is the most important thing. I don't think that whatever you want to call it, God, spirit, source, would put these things in our hearts, give us this ability if it wasn't for us to keep going and to share it in the way that was meant to be shared. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So my next question is, how do you cultivate your creativity, and how did you do that between when you were in corporate and now?
Yeah, so that's always an interesting question, especially when your peers start to see, oh, well, you're creating these really interesting things, and how do you even come up with it? That's the $1,000,000 question. How do you come up with it? And sometimes I can't even tell you. It just happened. Sometimes it started as idea A and I tried it and it didn't work, but then idea B started to sort of evolve. I'm like, oh, let's follow that path. So the images you see behind me, those were that's what I saw. That's what I did. I didn't really have to go and seek those out. I would almost have to go and grab one of the other ones. That's one of those more crazy storytelling images. So I have two actually that feature dragons, but one of them is a little girl, and she's dressed in maybe a Renaissance costume, which is a long curly red wig. And she's doing this with a bow and arrow, and she's looking up and she's screaming. And the scene is that it's nighttime, it's a full moon, she's in front of this castle, but it fades on the left-hand side of the image to basically look like her bedroom, moonlit. Right. And clearly she's gotten out of bed. Some of her stuffed animals are still in bed, and some of them have decided to come into the scene with her.
Yeah.
And the scene is that she's fighting a fire-breathing dragon.
So amazing.
And the title of it is called Night Terror.
Yeah.
And it just evolved, because I wanted her to pretend she was shooting something. But when I photographed her here by herself, it was like a storytelling make-believe. I had to pretend you're shooting. I don't even remember what I told her because I'm not sure I had the idea formed in my head completely yet.
Yeah.
But then when I started to put it together, it was literally the castle and her and the dragon. And I thought, well, what am I really saying?
Yeah.
What am I saying here? And so the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, why would she be in this scenario? Why would she be doing this? I'm like, oh, well, maybe she's having a bad dream. Now, how do I portray that she's having a bad dream and that she's being brave and fighting through her bad dream in an image? And so I sometimes kind of work them backwards.
Yeah. So this is really cool. So when you're working with a client and they tell you the story, from that story is how you create the scene for them?
Yeah, that's the intention. Exactly.
That is so cool. So a client comes to you, they know that they want this type of portrait. And do you start asking them a specific set of questions, or that you just have them go to their most fond memory or the thing that they want to kind of connect with? This is so cool.
Sometimes it's not very deep. Sometimes it's literally I just want to wear a cool costume and this is the scene. Right. So they might be, into cosplay, and they might just want to be I just want something cool to hang on the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly happy to oblige.
Totally. Yeah.
Because that can be fun too. That's a very direct idea that I don't have to work that hard to sort of expand. But for example, I had a woman who wanted to participate when I first launched my business. The 1 week where all of this transformative stuff happened was kind of a big week. So I left a career of 23 years on Thursday, went to lunch with my now ex-colleagues and turned in all my equipment on Friday. Saturday, some friends and I went to Costa Rica. Wednesday, the following week, I turned 50. And then when I came home, it was okay, well, I guess I'm a boss babe now. So it was a major week. And so I thought, how do I commemorate that? And I was trying to do this portrait project of women that are coming close to 50 or have passed 50, and what happened in your life at that period of time, right? So one woman came to me, and I'd known her through scuba diving from 10 years earlier, but we hadn't kept in touch. Her story was that she'd had breast cancer. And as she started telling me the story, she had her own story about how that made her feel. And She described herself like a scarred Barbie doll when she was partly through the process. And then when she was all finished, she told me that she felt like Sally from A Nightmare Before Christmas, because Sally is always stitching herself back up and coming back stronger. And so I just let her talk. And I said, well, you're giving me kind of all the feels at this point. You know, I said, how far would you be willing to let me take a concept like that? And she says, well, I don't know. How far do you want to take it? And I'm like, well, I mean, we could do some very poignant things. I said, but I'm literally kind of wanting to turn you into Sally. What do you think about that? She's like, let's go for it. So that's what we did.
That's amazing.
She did a very regular portrait session with hair and makeup and the whole 9 yards. And then at the end, I said, okay, now we're going to do the portrait that's going to be for Sally. So we didn't uncover her in any way that would make her uncomfortable if her kids or, people came to the house to see it, but enough for us to see that there was some scars that were relevant to her story.
Yeah.
And then I basically just kind of distorted her features and I changed her skin color and I literally created the scars after the fact.
That's so
So
cool.
I photographed her just like you and I are looking at each other today and decided I was going to take her on that journey through my creative skills.
That's amazing. That's so cool. That I could see for someone who has a story, who's gone through a journey, how it could also be so healing for them. And one, to share the story, but then to have something to see that is really representative of the journey, whatever it is. That is awesome. Hello, if you're listening and this is like sparking your interest, don't worry. Tina's information will be linked in the bio. You will definitely need to be reaching out to get an appointment because that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. So cool.
It's a long process sometimes. Somebody might have just a little bit of an idea, and then it is more of a coaching it, talking it through. So Deb and I, as a matter of fact, were literally doing this the other day. So what idea do you have? So she was telling me, I won't give the story away, but she was telling me the things, and it was kind of inspired by an image that she saw when she was with me at my convention in Nashville this past January. And she said, not quite like that. That was a little too much like on the nose, but I have this idea. And so she said, this is what I'm thinking. And then I said, okay, well, this is what I see. And she's like, yeah, that's kind of close. And then I said, but the more I think about it, now I'm seeing it more like, not like split in half, but more like a reflection. So so sometimes it just kind of goes and evolves a little bit and it's a back and forth.
Is that done yet?
No.
Okay. Because I was going to say, when it's done, Deb, if you're listening, which I know you will be, just know, I want to see it. So even if it's private, I get to see it. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
That is so cool. So here's my question. How do you right now connect to your intuition and trust yourself?
Sometimes it's not easy.
Oh, please. I know.
It's not easy. There are definitely days where I sit back and I think, did I actually make the right decision? I think earlier you asked me, and how did you come to the decision? Right. And for me, I was handed a really lucrative opportunity to say goodbye, to walk out the door and have a little bit of support. I'm also I'm not only loyal and whatever else the woo-woo stuff says, but I'm also very analytical, very logical, very level-headed. So I have this very creative side, but I also have this very logical, regimented, systematic side. And I use those both together, really, to run my business, make my decisions and all of that. I think if not for the opportunity that they gave me, which was truly voluntary, could have stayed with them if I wanted to, I may not have made the decision because I wasn't necessarily financially ready to cut cords and have, stand on my own 2 feet and bring in my own money. That's a scary thing. And so I think that's what holds a lot of people back.
Yeah, it does. It definitely holds people back. And it's something that, even I struggle with, it's like, I want to leave my corporate job. And I also know that it's not like, oh, it just happens tomorrow. I have to get my ducks in a row, as they say, and I think I've shared this before in another episode. I have also heard, well, you got to tell the universe, you just got to take the leap and jump. And, honestly, if I was single, I might have done that. I might do that, but I'm not. Right.
Well, I am single and I didn't do it because I'm single. And if I don't make it happen, what happens,
Right.
And so, thankfully I have a good team of people that can help me, see what my finances look like or coach me through business concerns and that good sort of thing. It's all about the people that you find and that you surround yourself with and trust. So sometimes when I don't trust myself, I talk to someone I do trust and, let them peel me off the ceiling a little bit. Cause I do end up there like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I don't know. I'm having a rough day. I think it's okay to acknowledge that you're having those days where you're questioning.
1000%, because it's real. But continuing to go back to, the center of what's true to you, what's your intuition telling you? Because, most often when we're talking to our coaches or our mentors, they just bring us right back to what's the real answer that our intuition's already told us. We just have to get there and work through it on our own, right? So a question for you around alignment. How do you know when you're out of alignment? And do you feel it in your body? Does it show up in different ways? And what does it feel like when you are in alignment? I know I did the worst thing you're supposed to ever do. I always say this. I did double question. Sorry.
Well, for me, there are physical out of alignments that, when I don't choose the right things to eat, that my body will just pretty immediately remind me that you just chose something really stupid, so there's that type of thing. But when I'm doing something that's not really in alignment with my goals, I feel that friction, but I don't always trust it.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing. So a great example of that was very early on when I first started networking. I had financial support from the buyout that I took. And so I could take risks and but I was excited and I couldn't wait to make new connections and start building my network. And so somebody was running one of those neighborhood magazines and needed a photographer and talked me into doing some work in that space that really didn't fit where I knew I wanted to go. I know in my heart, I really, for the most part, want to be a studio photographer. So you probably will never hear me tell somebody like, oh, you want family photos? Meet me in the park at 7:00 on Saturday.
Right.
Like, that probably would never just fall out of my mouth.
Right.
Not to say that I will never do photographs outside or, assess when a situation means that that's what I really need to do. But in my heart, I knew I really wanted to work in the studio and this was not going to be that. But I did it anyway because I thought I needed to make a good connection. It was probably going to help build my brand and yada, yada, yada. You can go on and on. My gut was telling me it's not the right thing. And I did it anyway. And then 3 months later, she told me it's not the right thing.
Isn't that so funny? Yeah. And it can happen like that. And the worst part about that, when you are not listening to your gut and it's not right. And then, I don't know, I'm not trying to project, but this happens to me when I don't listen to my intuition and I know it's not the right thing. And then I don't do anything about it, but then the other person does something about it. Then I'm like offended.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, excuse me.
I hate that. It's like, crap. It happened because it wasn't the right thing. But you knew way back then. And it's just like this maddening thing. Like, I'm supposed to be the one. Yeah.
We had friction for 3 months and I kept saying it's growing pains. It'll ease up. We'll figure it out. It'll smooth out. It's going to be fine. And, it was okay that we both came to the agreement that it wasn't actually going to work.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. And so when you are in alignment, what does that feel like?
It just feels easy. I think that's the best way to put it is it doesn't feel like you're working anymore. It doesn't feel like you're fighting. It doesn't feel like there's no questions. It just feels like this is where I'm supposed to be and this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. What I love about that is I swear everyone I ask this question to, there's a very similar response. And what I think is important to call out is sometimes this is when we doubt ourselves because it feels easy, because we're so conditioned to it not feeling easy. But when we're in alignment, it doesn't feel hard. It just feels easy, or a sense of peace, that sense of, peace and ease.
Yes.
And I do really think we're so conditioned to the grit and fight And that's just being clear and questioning, are we in alignment or not?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So for anyone who is listening, who is thinking about, how to harness or tap into their creativity, what would you tell them?
I think sometimes you just have to stop and you have to listen to yourself. So you have to think quietly, and you have to write things down. Sometimes just the tiniest thing will pop into my mind and I'll just write it down. I don't even know why I thought that. I just did. So I'm just going to write it down. Or for me, it sometimes is listening to a song
Mm-hmm.
and closing your eyes and thinking, like, what does that really mean? And what am I seeing as that song is playing? And I'm probably going to speak in ways that don't make sense to people who are not necessarily going to go create photographs or paintings or whatever. But, it can spark creativity in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
And sometimes it'll spark an idea that then will spark other ideas. And the first one gets abandoned, but it's the refined ideas that come from that process that actually make it, to see the light of day, if you will.
Yeah. I love
One of
that.
the hardest things for my competing friends that, certain competitions require you to title your images. And they generally say that the title isn't a make or break kind of thing. Like a title's not really going to rescue an image that's not great in the first place.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that a really strong title can certainly portray something about an image that you wouldn't have otherwise picked up on. So I described that whole like fire breathing dragon scene. If I just called it Dragon Fighter, would that sound the same as calling it Night Terror?
Yeah.
Like when you call it Night Terror, now all of a sudden, what is a night terror? Is this make believe? Is this what the little girl's thinking? So one of the things that I always tell people is kind of start with the obvious stuff and just write it down and sit with it. And then what's the next like variation of that you can think of? And if you get stuck with that, go Google for synonyms, Google for antonyms, Google for quotes about things. And all of a sudden, I think you'll find that ideas just start to flow.
I love that. Such a good tip for anyone, especially if you are not only titling things, but I'm thinking just in general in terms of if you're writing or just wanting to get sort of out of your own brain around something that you are creating. It's such a great tip. As we are coming to the end, I would love to just ask one last question around, the obvious. How can people find you?
Oh, well, that's a great question. So, one of the things that I'd like to sort of put out in the universe is I connected with somebody who I was introduced to through networking. And we had a conversation and the guy asked me, well, is your business local? And I thought, well, yeah, of course it's local. Not realizing what he really meant. Of course I can take an image from anybody, anywhere and turn it into a painting. So of course my business doesn't have to stay just local. But one of my dreams that I want to put out in the universe is that I would love to travel to people, to photograph them, to make these sorts of dreams for them come true. So I would love people to be able to find me from wherever. I'm www.tinacaron.com on the web. You can get a sense of what my work looks like there. You can reach me by all the different avenues off of that website. But I'm also at Tina Caron Photo everywhere.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You'll find me that way on Twitter, although you'll not see me really tweeting. I'm not active over there, but
it's okay. It's okay. Definitely go. We'll put the links for definitely like Instagram, LinkedIn, and for your website for people to find you. And I think that would be so cool to know that if someone is hearing you and they're intrigued, they can actually have you come to their space to create a image and a piece of art that is just for them. I think it's so cool.
Absolutely.
I love that.
They can come to me. I can go to them. Lots of ways to make their portrait dreams a reality.
I love that. That's so cool. Okay. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you for sharing your journey and your story. And what is the name of is it Dreamscape? What's the one that you work with them to come up with the cool art?
Yeah, that's the Dreamweaver line.
Dreamweaver. Sorry.
Yeah, Dreamweaver.
I knew Dream. That is so friggin' cool. If you are listening to this, go get your Dreamweaver art, photograph, photography, portrait. Like, this is like so cool.
It's so unique.
So it's so unique. And then also you also are really specializing in moms and babies, right?
I do have that as a line. So
yeah,
that's where my journey started with photography. Was I really wanted to do, motherhood, maternity, and newborn. And of course, it's like past that demographic. Like maybe my friends are becoming grandparents now, but
yeah.
no babies being born to my friends anymore.
Yeah.
But they do find me now, which is really fascinating. When I was really wanting that to be my primary focus, it wasn't really happening. And now I've done more babies in the last year without actually even marketing for them. So I'm more of a generalist. I'm a portrait artist for sure. So that's what I'm going to do is portraits and portraits in a particular style. But if the person that comes to me wants that particular style, I do not care if they're high school seniors or if they're older women or if they're couples. Yeah, it's kind of wide open.
Okay. So everyone can go to you as long as that's what resonates with them. And then if you're looking for something specifically unique and super special, then that's when they need to reach out to you for the Dreamweaver, because that is so special. And like I said, I can see so many people who have unique stories who want to either heal or just express who they are in a different way. That's going to be amazing. So again, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story. And we'll have all the links connected for everyone. And we will talk to you all really soon. Until next time. Thanks so much for listening to the Life Activated podcast. If this message from today's episode resonated with you, if it inspired you to start to live your passions, to take action in your life, then do me a favor and rate and review us, because honestly, that is the only way that this podcast will be found by others just like you. If you don't want to miss the podcast, don't forget to subscribe. Subscribing to the podcast ensures that you never miss an episode. All right. Thanks so much for supporting the Life Activated podcast. Until next time.